What is the first thing you think of when you think of 1910? Do you think perhaps of the Mexican Revolution, the Wellington-Washington avalanche, or Tsar Ferdinand I of Bulgaria flying in a plane? Because personally, that's what I think of. Or perhaps do you think of a collapsing Ottoman Empire? But before we talk about this, let's take it back to 1683, when the Ottoman Empire was at its absolute peak. At this time, the Ottoman Empire was one of, if not the, most strongest nations in the world, stretching all the way from Algiers in Algeria, Yemen in the Middle East, Vienna in Europe, and all the way to even Crimea. But after this, the Ottoman Empire would slowly start losing their territory, as most of their territory over here in Europe, called the Balkans, was very different from the Ottoman majority. You see, while a majority of the Ottoman Empire had a similar culture and was Islamic, but the Balkans had a very different culture, and they were not Islamic, they were Christian. So, over time, all of these nations declared their independence with the help from Russia. And now we skip back to 1910, where the Ottoman Empire only has little influence in the Balkans, with only having this little kind of like strip of land. And in Africa, they've lost all their territory except this worthless desert called Libya, which isn't even attached to the rest of the Ottoman Empire because the British took Egypt. And just north of Libya was a small little nation called Italy, wanting to expand. You see, in the scramble for Africa, many of the big powers of Europe, like France and Britain, got these huge amounts of territory. But Italy only got this little part called Eritrea and Somaliland, and they felt cheated and wanted to expand their empire. So they set their sights south on Libya and started the Italo-Turkish War. On September 30th, 1911, Italian troops landed in ports such as Tripoli, Bangshai, Tobruk, and Dorma. The Ottomans really couldn't do anything to stop this invasion, as all the ports had been taken by Italy, so they couldn't even transfer troops over to Libya. And even if they could, they probably wouldn't care. Libya was just a piece of small desert with no big cities, so there's really no point of holding on to it. So the Ottomans surrendered, and Italy annexed Libya. This war had showed the Ottoman Empire was in serious decline and would fall apart any second. This war would also catch attention of many of the nations in the Balkans, such as Serbia, Montenegro, Greece, and Bulgaria. You see, these nations wanted to rid the Ottoman Empire out of their lands for years, and now they finally saw their opportunity. So they gathered together to form an alliance called the Balkan League, and they got ready to invade the Ottoman Empire. On October 8th, 1912, Montenegro started their offensive into Ottoman territory. And just 9 days later, on October 17th, 1912, the rest of the Balkan members declared war on the Ottoman Empire. These nations had mobilized mass amounts of men, with Bulgaria mobilizing more than all the other Balkan League members combined, with 600,000 troops mobilized. While Serbia had only mobilized 255,000, Greece had mobilized 120,000, and Montenegro had mobilized 44,000. The main theater in this war would be in Bulgaria, as the Bulgarians would try to go south to capture the Ottoman capital of Constantinople. As the Bulgarians marched south, they successfully sieged an Ottoman fort of Adrianople, and they had two other major battles, one at Kirk-Kolis and one at Lol Burgos. These battles were actually the largest battles of the entire war and led to a decisive Bulgarian victory, leaving the gate open for a conquest of Constantinople. The Ottomans' last defense before the Bulgarians would reach Constantinople was Chadachalza, and luckily for the Ottomans, they would actually win this battle, pushing the Bulgarians back. And if they didn't, Constantinople likely would have been conquered by the Bulgarians. The Bulgarians were not the only one having successes, as the Serbians had victory at the Battle of Komanovo. With this, other Serbian forces would then push south, taking Pristina and heading towards Skopje. Greece, even though not having the biggest army, they were really the only one who had a navy, which would prevent Ottoman troops from being transported to Asia to Europe faster. The Greeks would have a very decisive battle at the Battle of Giannitsa, eventually heading north and taking Thessaloniki. Greece had a decisive victory at Thessaloniki, but in the west they didn't have the biggest army, but they did get a decisive victory at the Battle of Byzani and started pushing north into Albania. Although, on the 20th of November, the remaining parts of Albania that were occupied by the Ottoman Empire, with the help from Italy and Austria-Hungary, The Albanians revolted and decided to form their own nation, which would be successful. The Ottoman government was couped by young Turks who wanted to continue the war, even though a group of young Turks took over the government determined to continue the war to keep control of Adrianople. But after the Bulgarian siege finally ended and the Bulgarians took control of the city, they realized there was no hope. And on the 30th of May, 1913, all the nations signed a peace treaty and war was over. Even though the war was over and most of the Balkan League members were happy, there was one that was very angry: Bulgaria. You see, there's kind of this treaty Serbia and Bulgaria made where Serbia would get the north of Macedonia, while Bulgaria would get the south. And Serbia took all of Macedonia. And so for obvious reasons, the Bulgarians were really mad about their stolen territory, even though they got a lot of territory out of the First Balkan War. The Bulgarians had contributed by far the most to the Balkan Wars. They had lost the most men, they had fought the most valuable battles, and they were closest to capturing Constantinople. They deserved all of Macedonia. So they decided, screw this, I will forcefully get Macedonia. Even though Romania, Montenegro, and Greece all stated that they would be siding with Serbia, Bulgaria did not care. On the 29th of June, Tsar Ferdinand himself ordered an attack on Serbia, and Bulgarian troops started entering the lands. The 4th Bulgarian Army and the 2nd Bulgarian Army started marching into Serbian and Greek territories, with the 4th Bulgarian Army heading deep into Macedonian territory. Even though these attacks would go well at first, the 4th Army was eventually pushed back by the Serbians, and the 2nd Army was even getting pushed back by the Greeks as well. The Bulgarians suffered many casualties and started retreating. Even worse, the Romanians had officially declared war and started walking through the north of the nation unopposed. Even worse, the Ottoman Empire saw how Romania kind of just walked into Bulgaria with no resistance, so they decided to reinvade to hopefully regain some of their territory. And that's exactly what they did. Now, the Bulgarians were surrounded on 4 sides: Greece, Serbia, Romania, and the Ottomans. With Greece pushing from their territory, with Bulgaria also getting pushed back by Serbia, with the Romanians and the Ottomans walking into their nation, they realized they had no chance. So each nation met in Bucharest to decide a peace deal. The treaty was signed on the 10th of August, 1913, and Bulgaria lost a ton of territory and was humiliated by its neighbors. But the final question is, was any of this deserved for Bulgaria? Did Bulgaria deserve the humiliation they received? Did Bulgaria deserve that loss? Me personally, I don't think so. I think Bulgaria was just standing up for themselves, taking their own territory. But what about the Ottoman Empire? Was that justified? Was the Balkan League ganging up on a weakened Ottoman Empire justified? Well, I'm not sure. So that's up for you to decide. But, hey, after this, everyone learned how to become peaceful, and there was never any big war. Hold up, what's that? Wait, why are they at war again? Oh, for goodness sake!